Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Great America Show. It's great to have you with us. As always, thank you for joining us on this fine day in America. President Trump proving to be, once again, as always, the greatest president of all time, but proving to be a uniter in chief, even for the blue states. New York, one that he lost by over 1 million votes. Donald Trump fighting for us New Yorkers. The Trump administration is moving to end what he says is an unconstitutional congestion pricing put in effect by our governor, Kathy Hochul, fulfilling a campaign promise to reverse the policy that tolls drivers who enter Manhattan's busiest streets at any given point in the day. Kathy Hochul, the governor, not happy about it. You may recall, those of you who don't live in New York, when she was running for re-election, she had said, we're not going to do the congestion pricing. As soon as that election ended, she went ahead and put in congestion pricing, which fines New Yorkers for driving through New York City. Imagine that. Folks who are getting to work, folks who have to go to work, have to pay a special price if you want to drive through New York City. So Donald Trump, once again, proving to be uniter in chief. Also, Elon Musk, another uniter. Elon Musk and Donald Trump are reportedly looking at a form of a tax rebate for the American people with the money that they're going to recoup and save for the DOGE committee. It'll come as a form of a dividend check or tax refund to every single taxpayer funded by the savings of the DOGE committee. Folks, we're going to talk all about that on today's show and the money, the wasteful spending that we've spent here in the government and the money that we're going to continue to save or start to save, I should say, under this administration, under the watchful eye of the great Elon Musk. Our guest today is a fan favorite of the Great America Show. His name is Russ Tice. He's a former senior NSA intel analyst and a whistleblower. Russ Tice, it's great, as always, to have you back with us here on the Great America Show. I hope you enjoyed your vacation, your holidays, but now it's time to get back to work because people have been asking, where's Russ Tice? They thought maybe the deep state had gotten you, but the problem is you're smarter than almost every single person in that place, so they can't get you. So, Russ, as I said, great to have you back with us. So much going on right now. Tulsi Gabbard officially taking her post. Mike Waltz hard at work. Marco Rubio doing a far better job than I would have ever imagined as Secretary of State. He's got me completely surprised, lining himself up for possible promotion at some point in his career. So I want to start today's show with a full assessment on where we are right now in the intel agencies, where we need to go and where we need to be and how we get there.
Well, that's, we're about to see Kash Patel hopefully get confirmed. And although the FBI would like to consider them an intel agency, they really are not. They're law enforcement. But that one needs to be just, deep sixed from the jump, I think. But, I mean, the intel community has a pretty important role, Our job is to make sure that our leaders know what's going on so they can make decisions that affect our national security. And unfortunately, they haven't been doing that job. It's DEI and all these self-serving things. And as you know from the past, I mean, the reason I'm basically here and what happened to me with my career is I found out that NSA and the intelligence community was basically blackmailing the Congress, the judges, the key elected leaders, and for their own, to make sure that whatever budget thing came up, that the intel community got whatever. And by the way, when was the last time you ever heard of an intel budget being challenged or being culled, even a little bit, mind you? Basically, the way it works is, they'll ask for $100 billion for something. And the Congress will say, well, how about we give you an extra 20 billion, extra 30? Would you like an extra 40 billion with that? That's how basically it works. And it's been that way for 25 years. So we have an awful lot of things in the intel community that are a problem. There is a valid reason to be there, but a lot of that leadership needs to be culled. First thing I would do is I'd probably fire every senior executive service SCS person in there. Because I'll tell you, even when I was there, all the SCSs walk around with a coffee cup and they pop into your office and waste your time yapping about days gone by, well, like Bruce Springsteen's "Glory Days" song, and then it's just, and then they go off to the next office, wasting somebody else's time. So I think we ought to fire all the SESs. Then the 15s that want to be SESs, let them all become, because remember, if you're an SES, you're at will.
Tell the audience what an SES is, Russ.
A senior executive service is someone who's beyond the GS scale, the government service scale. And of course, you get paid a lot more, too, to basically you become sort of like a senior advisor within the agency that you're in and your specialty, what have you. And these guys, they're at will. So they are no longer protected by the normal civil service protections. Unless you were me, and of course they trashed me by by taking my security clearance. But an SES can be fired, on a moment's notice. I'd fire them. I'd let the 15s become FCSs, and once they become FCSs, I'd fire all them. And then go let the 14s become 15s, and then try to basically go in and sift out how many of the newly minted 15s are worth keeping, and how many of the rest of them need to be just given an early buyout or just put out the pasture in some way or another.
How many are there, Russ, in your best judgment?
Boy, that's a good question. You've got the big ones, NSA, CIA, DIA, but you've also got the other services, the Army, Navy, Air Force. They all have their own intel services.
Well, ruling out the military, guys, let's look towards.
Well, those aren't military. These are civilians that work for the military in intel positions. When I worked with the Navy, I was a civilian who worked for naval intelligence. Being the only Air Force guy, I took a lot of jokes from the Navy guys, but it was you got to accept that. But yeah, there's everybody thinks military. I think, everyone that's in uniform. Oh no, you're certainly working with guys and gals in the military, but there's an awful lot of civilians there as well. So it's people don't realize. And then the contractors, you've got, especially at places like NSA and CIA, you have tons and tons of contractors that work side by side, and they do a lot of they build the systems, and then we're going to talk about a little waste, and there's a lot of waste that's involved there too. But there's a lot of things that go on in the intel service that aside from whether you have a president in there and everyone's going to forget their job and start spying on Americans, or whoever's going to a Catholic service in Latin and using your spying capabilities, or collecting every daggone communication in the country and sending it to Bluffdale, Utah. There's a lot of things that are going on that need to be stopped, and a lot of waste that needs to be stopped. Yet you got to remember there is a legitimate reason for these services for national security, and that's that fine line that has to be walked. You just can't. To me, I think you can trash can everything. That most of the FBI do a lot of that stuff through the Marshal Service, but you really can't do that in intel because they have a legitimate mission.
So how many of your best judgment are there that need to be fired?
Geez, I'd say maybe 2,000-3,000.
How many people as a whole would you best guess are in the intel community?
That's classified, by the way.
Your best judgment, your best guess.
Well, the largest intel service is NSA.
Yeah. And
if I knew exactly, I wouldn't be able to say. But Edward Snowden came out with some numbers, and you were looking at well over 60,000 just in NSA, and that's just the government, military people. That's not including the contractor support.
Wow.
Many tens of thousands more beyond that 60,000. And that was Edward Snowden was 13 years ago. So it's grown vastly since that 60,000 that he's marked.
So online they're reporting it's about half that at 32,000, which is sort of a little bit of a discrepancy.
Remember, that was just NSA. I'm not including.
No, that's what I'm saying at NSA. So that's sort of interesting. So now you go down the list of some of these other agencies. I mean, what's your best guesstimate? I'm not asking if you know or you don't know, or if you read it somewhere. What would you say over the course of say the NSA, the CIA, and the DIA? What the total is it? 200,000?
I'd bet that probably CIA is maybe 20,000. I bet I have no idea about the FBI. I know they have district offices all over the country. Sometimes they send people overseas. But all in all, it's probably well over 200,000. And remember, you remember, we're also talking military intel, capabilities, uniform or no. And then we have not even added on to the contractors. Even at NSA, the NSA is, everyone thinks the main campus at NSA at Fort Meade, but they have outlying buildings and office buildings all over around Fort Meade, to the point of about 50 buildings, 50
Wow.
all over. There's a building for the architecture where they're building more buildings, and there's a building and many logistics buildings. There's the FANX, the CANX, the different CANX means the Columbia Annex, and FANX means the Friendship Annex, and that's up by the airport at Baltimore's airport. And there's many offsets as well from NSA, and there's a place where CIA and NSA work together, and I'm not going to give any details about that place, but and that's a whole nother big facility. So it's they're all over the place, especially here in Central Maryland. And then, of course, NSA, we have all those listening stations all over the world. Where, as a young fella in uniform in the Air Force, I spent 2.5 years overseas with cans on my head, listening to certain things that were going on in the world. So it's very large. And now, of course, now we got the big Bluffdale facility for data storage. We have about half that size, a brand new facility at Fort Meade. Fort Meade, by the way, they had two 18-hole golf courses. One was called Applewood and one was called Parks. They decided to wipe out the golf courses to build new buildings on. Now, some of that was DISA. They brought in a couple of other agencies, DISA and I forget who else came in. But still, NSA started packing a whole 2 golf courses worth of real estate, and some of those it was the fairways were quite long for longer than your average fairway. So they had a lot of real estate, and they've packed all those things full of new buildings. So it's humongous.
So I'm looking at something right here, something from WikiLeaks, which, full disclosure, I don't know I don't know Julian Assange, or I've never met him before. But according to some of the studies he's done, he's saying maybe over 100,000 work at just the CIA alone. Now, that's the only one that you can't get an estimate on after looking through it. You said about 60,000 NSA, about 40,000 the FBI, 20,000 at the DIA. I mean, those are just the 3 main ones. You've obviously got 18. I think it's 18, right, in the total intelligence community, all in all, with the military and Coast Guard. You go down the list of them. But that'd be remarkable. So let's call it, Russ, in the big 3, the big 4, 200,000 people. What in the world? 200,000 people is like the population of some places. What in the world?
With contractors, it's probably more than that.
Oh, it's probably double that with contractors. Yeah. So we'll call it 400,000 to be conservative. Russ, what are 400,000 people actually doing?
Some are doing valid jobs. I have a brother-in-law, and his job is to build racks and facilities with equipment that we do some of our things, surveillance things with. And he works for a contractor, so the agency will say, we need a system to do this with this kind of equipment. He designs it all, and they go out and they install it wherever they need it. Now that's a valid job, because we go overseas, we build these systems, and we put on our big ears and we listen to hopefully bad guys doing bad things or planning bad things. Right. That's what the agency's for. But then you've got agents. We haven't got into the waste thing. You've got agencies, or you've got contractors that are basically looking mainly for a clearance, for someone with a clearance, and it doesn't matter. They need the equivalent of a computer programmer for writing code for some whatever algorithms for a capability, and the person they find has a bachelor's degree in accounting, and they hire them because they have a security clearance to be coding for an end system to do surveillance. So you have mismatches like that. It's basically, instead of shopping for the position and then looking for the right people, then clearing them, they look for the clearance first, then plug people into jobs that they don't have a clue what they're doing, and hopefully they can catch on somehow. It quite often is failures, and that in itself blows billions and billions of dollars just by shopping for clearance, not capability. And a lot of that is because they went to a lot of contractors versus keeping government employees with designated positions.
Very interesting. We're talking about Russ Tice, folks. He's a former senior NSA Intel analyst and great American and a whistleblower, a very good American on that front. We're going to come right back with Russ. When we continue, I want to go a little bit deeper into this Intel stuff and what it means for President Trump. And can he have a fair shake this time of people who are doing the right thing for this country? I also want to take up some of this wasteful spending you had mentioned and how we could trim some of the fat. I'm still mind-boggled. I can't even think straight to think that we've got over 400,000, Russ, in just 3 or 4 agencies. And I have to assume we can probably do that job with half or a quarter of what that is. We're going to come right back with Russ. I want to get your take on this when we return, folks. Once again, we're talking with our good friend, Russ Tice. Stay with us.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98. Kings only $69.98. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 20% on our brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one I've worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the USA. Get our 2025 6-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, just $14.98. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our first ever mega sale. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Well, that ship is sale, because right now, every order ships absolutely free.
Folks, we're back. We're talking with Russ Tice, former senior NSA Intel analyst. So much for me to say. I struggle to get that out every time, but I got it out that time. Russ, we were talking about the Intel community, everything that comes with it. We're going to get to the wasteful spending that you believe is happening right now inside the IC. Before we get to that, I want to talk about an issue that President Trump has had since his first term, and it was loyalty. It was people who didn't have the best interest of Donald Trump's administration. They didn't have the best interest of this country. We'll take, for example, Mark Milley, apparently talking to China behind Trump's back, holding the nuclear codes from the president, a long list of bad things. It turns out he gets a pardon as Joe Biden leaves, which makes you wonder what he really did more than what we know. Do you think Donald Trump gets a fair shake this time? Will the Intel community keep Intel from him anymore, or will he have an Intel community that is fully transparent in what's going on?
Well, first, I think he learned his lesson the last time where he picked people that were backstabbers, and ultimately the Intel service just ignored him, said we're just not going to do anything he wants, or we're not going to tell him anything. What's her name at CIA?
Gina Haspel.
I think Trump kind of figured out she was not loyal and said he might fire. And I think she shed some crocodile tears, and I think our president fell for it. He needs loyal people. Now, I think he's done that. He's found people that are loyal to the cause. Now he needs to find people that are specialists in the field that know where to find these things to help those loyal people, to help those directors and secretaries to do the job that he needs to follow his agenda. Otherwise, like I think I've said in the past, there's going to be the intel community, especially, will try to blow smoke up the executives and the closest to the White House executives, cabooses to just bells and whistles, dog and pony shows, and because I can give you examples of briefings that I've seen where they change the name of programs. And they say, well, we can't tell you this because you're a committee on defense because that's intel. Then they change it to another thing. When it's the defense committee, they say, we can't tell you because it's intel. And it's a little shell game. It's like the guy with the shells with a little marble in it, or a little pea in it, back and forth. You got to figure out where the daggone, the marble is underneath the shells. So they play these little games, and people that don't have experience or know that they're being basically had, they don't know, that the wool's being pulled over their eyes. So that's the next step. You've got to have people that you can trust and that know the business enough that they can whisper in the ear of their primary to say, hey, they're trying to game you here, that they're playing you.
It's unbelievable. A man who's taken aim at everything that's going on, the infamous Elon Musk, becoming a best friend to President Trump. Elon Musk's son, X, becoming a fan favorite over at the White House still. The kid, I don't even know how old he is, 3 or 4 years old, and the kid looks like a genius already. But the Marxist left having a meltdown, Russ, and it perplexes me every day, and the audience is probably tired of hearing me talk about it, but I'm just so confused. There's very few things that confuse me in this world, and this is one of them. Usually you hear fights about wasteful spending and, the Democrats are all in favor of spending more and the Republicans are in favor of spending more. Now you're hearing them complaining about wanting to cut back spending because there's wasteful spending in all aspects of the government. Can you give me an assessment looking at the IC, the intelligence community, on where the bloat is, how much can be cut, the total budgets that need to be slashed, and where we start?
A lot of that bloat is with those contractors. That's the first place I would look. They have positions where they just want to fill a position, and they'll have makeup work. It's like, okay, this person might be a specialist in this or that, but they say, well, we don't have something for that, but the person has a clearance. Let's hire them, and then we're gonna pay this person $130,000 a year to take notes at meetings, and type them up and ship them to the people that were at the meeting, and or to whoever might be interested in what happened in the meeting that is cleared for that program system, what have you. So there's crazy stuff like that going on, and that is the first place to look, is the contractors. When you have people like Hayden that basically, and I'll hit one I got a whole list of things we can talk about here.
Let's go.
But there's a system called Trailblazer, or a program called Trailblazer. It's where they tried to take a lot of things and give them to contractors to do that was being done by GSs and government service people. And the system was to bring in a lot of information that, by the way, ultimately they used to spy on Americans, right, which is what I blew the whistle on. But there's a guy named Bill Binney who was in charge of the tech program, that they came up with another system. By the way, Trailblazer was billions of dollars, and General Hayden, was picking out all these contractors and Bill Binney came up with and some of his folks came up with a system called Thin Thread that would cost just a few $100 million, like, $200-300 million, to do the same thing, and it had an audit capability, and it culled and filtered system information out before it would be collected. And Hayden went with the multi-billion-dollar program instead of the one that would cost like $200 million. that had far better capabilities and audit capabilities to make sure if anybody's dipping in there to do nefarious things, which is what they did to spy on Congress and to spy on the executive and to spy on all the pushers and shakers in D.C. and elsewhere, that you could find out with an audit system. They didn't want an audit system, but they spent billions of dollars on Trailblazer, which was a disaster. And there's one. Now, this is called Groundbreaker. Groundbreaker was to be able to take IT services and consolidate them and bring in contractors to do that particular job. The problem was back to hiring people that had clearances versus the technical capabilities.
Right.
And if a government service wants to hire, you want to hire a GSIT guy, you find the person with the specialties, the degrees and the capabilities and the certificates, and then you vet them and look in their background, make sure they're not axe murderers or what have you, and then you hire them, and that takes time, but at least you get the right person for the job. I'll give you a little example. I worked in a vault for doing SAP programs, special access programs, and it's a very, very, very classified environment as far as the restrictions of who could be allowed in there. We call them vaults. And my phone went out. The ringer on the phone went out of my phone. Now, instead a little light would still flash, but the ringer went out. So I put in a work order to have my phone fixed. Right now, this is an unclassified phone, but it had what's called STU capabilities. A STU card is you put it in, plug it in your unclassified phone, and someone you're calling. If you're in New York and you have a STU, you plug your STU card in, and we can talk at a super classified level on an unclassified line because it's encrypted. Well, it's that kind of a phone, but all I needed was the ringer, bring, bring. That's all I needed, right? So I'm waiting for months, and finally, this woman calls on our gray line. Gray line is the dedicated secure line. It's always secure. And she says, I've been trying to get in touch with you for months to finish this order to fix your phone, and I've been calling you repeatedly. The order is to fix the ringer on the phone.
Oh my goodness.
And she's the person to fix the phone. Oh. Me and my coworkers and when she finally came to fix the phone, we're trying to give her hints like, gee, I'm so sorry that I didn't get in touch with you. I just, if only I could have gotten one of your calls. It never once did it faze her that the thing she was there to fix the phone for was the same thing she was trying to notify me, because she could not get into the vault because of all the super classification security arrangements to get her into the vault. It's just stupidity like that. This kind of, but that's just more wasted money for things of that nature. There's things like NSA went out and bought web data, for millions and millions of dollars from.
For what?
Why would they need web data? Because they already collect your phone information.
Right.
They gotta marry up what you do on your phone with what you look at on the web. That's what they were doing with that.
Russ, this brings up my point about just 400,000 people we're talking about. It's obviously into the millions when you go into the other 15 other agencies in the IC that we haven't spoken about. What are these
talking billions here? Ultimately, this lines up to billions of dollars.
Well, the estimate I saw in this report that I read from 2009 was at 65% of the world's intelligence spending, you spend about $78 billion a year on it. And it makes you wonder, Russ, what do these people do for a living that they're going to get a paycheck? And you're right. It's these military contractors who come in and make a boatload, a $2 million contract here, a $3 million contract here and there, and you send them over to Afghanistan, and you send them over to Iraq, and you send them to fix things diplomatically and to clean up places, and they only leave it worse off than it was when they come back. But it's just mind-blowing to me that we have this many people working in the intelligence community when it seems like, Russ, there's really no intelligence. I mean, I understand there's probably attacks on the homeland each and every day that are thwarted, but you hear about a few every now and then, but you think about the ones that weren't thwarted. And looking at a smaller scale, Russ, and anytime anyone's life is lost, it's obviously not small, but I'm saying relatively speaking to something like 9/11, where there was over 3,000 people killed. But you look at school shootings, right? You look at the guy out in San Bernardino, California. You look at the guy up in Buffalo who shot up a grocery store. And Russ, time and time again, you know what we find out? I don't think in the last, we'll say 10 years, there's been a shooting, a mass shooting, a casualty somewhere, where it didn't come out afterwards that somebody knew about it. The FBI knew about it. Some local police department knew about it. Teachers in a school knew about it. I'd have to assume each and every single one of them that I can recall, the FBI says, oh, yeah, he was on our watch list. Oh, yeah, we met. You had the kid in Georgia who shot up the school, and there's a recording of the police going to the kid's house saying, hey, did you post on Facebook? They have the post. Did you post on Facebook that you wanted to shoot up a school? And the kid's dad's sitting there angrily looking at him because he has no idea what had happened. And the kid goes, no, I didn't say that. And the cop goes, well, you sure? And the kid goes, yeah. And the cop looks at him and says, well, I have to assume you're telling me the truth, knowing damn well they have the post. But it's time and time again. And the local police I'm talking about aren't even part of these million plus people who are working in the community. But what do these people do, Russ, that time and time again, 9/11, how many times were we told that 9/11 may happen? It happened under the watchful eye of our intelligence community. How many times do we have to have this community fail us for us to say, okay, maybe this isn't working. Maybe the million plus people we have working here, maybe the $75 billion, and that's in 2009, Russ. So it's got to be probably double now with inflation. So
well, with 9/11, we were screaming at Hayden to please give us more Arabic and Urdu and Farsi linguists. Please give us more linguists. We're collecting all this information. Remember, I'm doing my satellite stuff, and I'm collecting a lot of stuff, and a lot of my stuff isn't being processed because we don't have the linguists. And I'm like, we need linguists desperately. Hell, even get a freaking cab driver in the country who speaks, and then just have him filter stuff, just translate stuff at a lower level, and then have an analyst look at to see, filter out where the threat might be. But he kept buying all these web warriors. Now, at that point, NSA was falling behind as far as some of the tech stuff. So, and Hayden, at one time at a Pentagon meeting, he got rimmed for that. I was at that meeting. But he hires all these web warriors. And ultimately, we had the information like 2 days before that attack was going to happen, but it wasn't translated. So, but we hired all these web warriors. And what do the web warriors, what are they used for? To spy domestically on American citizens.
Right.
So, I've got a whole bunch more examples of crazy crap that some of it is just hubris and you can't imagine that, if you want to hear them, I'll give you some more, but it's just insane. Some of the stuff that goes on as far as the waste.
It blows my mind up, Russ, because I know being a New Yorker, how many people died on 9/11 that I was friends with, how many kids I went to school with whose father didn't come home because he was a firefighter, he was a cop. I had an uncle who passed away in September from brain cancer from cleaning up 9/11 debris. You know what it was like for his family, for my cousins, for my aunt who passed away just before him, to get $250,000 out of the city, that they were squeezing the families for $250,000 money that from the victims' compensation fund that the city wouldn't give to them. How sick and demented this country has gotten, Russ. It's mind-blowing and so troubling to me.
And wasn't that after the governor of New York said that the atmosphere, the air is perfectly fine?
Yep. No mask.
Lying through her bloody teeth.
Russ, they said masks helped us during COVID from a cough, but you didn't need to wear a mask down at ground zero from the asbestos, from the pipes burning, from the metal melting, from the carcinogens, from the bodies that were burning. You didn't need to wear a mask. That was fine. They sent these guys in because they didn't care. They said, just go ahead and get the job done. We'll deal with it later. And the dealing with it later was that each family member who died from 9/11 or some sort of, you got a measly $250,000, and that was back from 2001. So you look at inflation now, it's probably worth half that at $100,000. What price do you put on a life, Russ? Is it $100,000? Is it? If you ask me, I'd tell you my wife is worth $100 million, $100 billion. You can't put a price on a loved one, that doesn't come home that night. Yet we have our government who's been completely deceitful and lied to us about so much stuff along the way. And it's the reason why you and I are sitting here today talking about it. Russ, I want to take one more quick break here. When we return, the conversation continues. I need to go get a sip of coffee because I am heated right now. We're coming right back.
I'll make you more ticked off if you want to hear some more of this stuff.
We're coming right back with Russ Tice. He's a former senior NSA intel analyst and whistleblower. Folks, stay with us.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98. Kings only $69.98. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 20% on our brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one I've worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the USA. Get our 2025 six-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, just $14.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our first ever mega sale. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Well, that ship is sailed because right now, every order ships absolutely free.
Folks, we're back. We're talking with Russ Tice, a great friend of the show, former senior NSA intel analyst and whistleblower. Russ, on the topic of wasteful spending, we could have spent another hour and a half talking about it, probably more, maybe a few days. I want to turn to Fort Knox and get your assessment on what's going on down there. Elon Musk, I think I was reading this morning, the last time Fort Knox was audited was like 1974, 1975. So 50 years, just about, give or take a year or two. 50 years was the last time. And my running joke on this show has been, if Senator Bob Menendez was anywhere near that damn place, there ain't an ounce of gold left in it. 50 years, and Russ, Elon Musk wants to audit it and go check and make sure there's gold there. The Marxist Dems don't want to let him down there. What's going on?
Good question. I mean, the rumor has been for years that there's nothing but cobwebs in those vaults. So let's find out. So I'm all for Mr. Musk and his musketeers to go down there and find the hell out. Just like we need to have some of the same ilk in our intel services. But I mean, it's fighting these Democrats for doing any of this. I mean, this is. First of all, it's under the executive, and that just happens to be a guy named Trump, if I recall, to run the executive service. So how can these judges say that there's no, they have no ability to do so when they've been given the gratis of the president of the United States to do? Do they expect the president of the United States to go to Fort Knox and count the gold bars?
I think they wanted Hunter Biden and Joe Biden and Jim Biden to go down there and count and do a great account. I mean, bring the rest of his crackhead friends with them. Bring Bob Menendez down there with you. Senator Goldbar himself. Bring them all and go check the place out. But they don't want Elon Musk to go down there. A man who doesn't need to steal, a man who doesn't need another dollar for the rest of his life, a man who has really no skin in the game here. He's not going to make another dollar. He gets government contracts regardless if he's friends with Trump or not, because the truth of the matter is, you may recall, we don't have a thing called NASA anymore. Obama abolished our astronaut program, so we have to rely on Elon Musk. So the people who are saying Elon Musk is doing this to garner business, this is hurting his business. He's probably going to sell less cars this year from these liberals who buy electric cars. His government contracts are what they are and will be what they will be, and he said anything that has to do with his businesses, he will keep completely separate, and he will not get involved with the federal government. And I truly believe him. I trust him because, like I said, he's the world's richest man, he's the world's smartest man. He doesn't need the headache. I think he truly wants to make a difference in this world and cut spending like we've never seen before. But the Democrats, Russ, are losing their mind over Fort Knox. They're also losing their mind over him auditing the IRS. So one of Elon Musk's guys, his DOGE boys, a guy named Gavin Klinger, he's a software engineer who works with DOGE. He's going to be based at the IRS for 120 days and will reportedly have access to the tax agency's data, according to CNN reporting. Klinger, he will work as a senior advisor to the IRS acting commissioner. Okay, It's one guy who's going to go in there. And probably this goes back to what I was saying before about 1 million people there. This is one guy who's probably going to do the job of 10 people. With the click of a button and technology, he'll be able to figure out abnormalities and trends and things that aren't good. Okay. So they're melting down about this. There was a Treasury report back in 2023 of September that as many as 919 individuals had access to unmasked IRS data under Joe Biden. One person, 919 people, yet they're having a total meltdown about it. What's your thoughts, Russ, about him auditing the IRS, the folks who come and audit us?
Well, the Democrats are trying to make this a Sisyphusian task to get this boulder up this mountain. And I mean, we would just find out that the Social Security is sending checks to thousands of people that are 120, 150 years old or more. Wow, that's incredible. I'd like to meet some of these folks and get their, what their recipe is for longevity. But the fact that they're doing everything they can means that they're part and parcel to this. And every time it comes out, they look bad. And then you're going to find out that they've got their fingers with the contractors that have stuff that's involved with this. And that's how someone who walks into Congress who's worth 200,000 walks out making worth 200 million. So this nonsense is coming out. And ultimately, think about this. Every time this comes out, and the American people are going, "Holy moly, that's my tax money!"
Right?
And then this information is going to be used. Oh, by the way, Mr. Mr. Democrat, you tried to keep Mr. Musk's musketeers from finding this information out, fighting tooth and nail and sicking the sycophant liberal judges, these legislative judges, to try to do everything to stop it, and you are the people that are supporting this government being out of control, to the point where we're $36 trillion in debt. So I mean, they supported that. Even the raging Cajun down there in Louisiana has said you got to stop being stupid, because we can use this as a cudgel to beat the hell out of them in the next 10 elections.
Yeah, I've never heard, Russ, if someone called me and said I can save you, what's the Geico commercial? 15 minutes can save you 15% or more on car insurance. If someone calls me and says they can save me money on this, I'm all for it. It doesn't matter where it is. If you can save me on credit cards, if you can save me on car insurance, anywhere you can save me money, I'm going to be all in favor of it. It's so strange that the Democrats are seemingly so against it. Russ, before we head over to Ukraine and get your take on what's happening over there, I want to turn to a war we're having on here at home. It's at our southern border. The U.S. is reportedly flying MQ-9 Reaper drones given permission by Sheinbaum of Mexico up and around the border. Is President Trump getting ready for the show? You and I were talking that these have some capabilities to do a little bit of damage. Is President Trump ready to take on Mexico in a possible firefight?
Well, the Reaper carries Phoenix missiles, and they'll ruin your day very quick if you meet up with one of those things. So, especially if we get the president of Mexico's okay, I say we blow the hell out of them. I know those missiles are damned expensive. Let's make sure we don't miss. Let's try to get as many of them as we can with one missile. But
Russ, we spent $250,000 on a Sidewinder missile to shoot down the balloon after it came over America.
Yeah, but it was traveling at quite an altitude, though. But I'm all for it. And these drug traffickers and human selling little girls into sex slavery and killing the fentanyl, killing 100 or more thousand of our young people every single year. This is an outrage, and I say light them up, and as soon as you light enough of them up, the rest of them are going to tuck tail and run. So let's have at them. Go get them, Mr. President.
Yeah, we have no choice. It's gotten far too out of control with the drug business they've been allowed to run here. I mean, they're literally running maybe billion-dollar corporations. I mean, they're literally running a business. They should register for LLCs and pay taxes. I mean, with the kind of business and money that they're doing, Russ, at our southern border, that was allowed under none other than Joe Biden. I want to turn to, before we wrap up here, Russ, Ukraine and the issue that be over there. Long war, no signs of ending yet. Putin may be open to a deal, but it turns out Zelensky now all of a sudden doesn't want peace. A man who has claimed he wants peace. I saw a poll the other day where Zelensky was down like 60-30 to his opponent. Now, he doesn't want to hold an election either. President Trump, not happy with Zelensky anymore. And Zelensky sort of turning his back on President Trump after giving them $350 billion. So President Trump had this to say on Truth Social and X. Quote, think of it. A modestly successful comedian, Volodymyr Zelensky, talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war that couldn't be won. There's nothing false about that. We knew that. That never had to start, but a war that he, without the U.S. and Trump, would never be able to do or settle. The United States has spent $200 billion more than Europe, and Europe's money is guaranteed, while in the United States we get nothing back. Why didn't sleepy Joe Biden demand equalization? In this war that is far more important to Europe than it is to us. We have a big, beautiful ocean that separates us. On top of this, Zelensky admits that half the money we sent him is, quote, missing. Sounds like America here at home. He refuses to have elections, is very low in the Ukrainian polls, and the only thing he was good at was playing Biden like a fiddle. A dictator without elections, Zelensky better move fast, or he's going to have no country left. In the meantime, we're successfully negotiating to end the war with Russia, something we could all admit only Trump and the Trump administration could do. Biden never tried. Europe has failed to bring peace, and Zelensky probably wants to keep the gravy train going. I love Ukraine, but Zelensky has done a terrible job. His country is shattered, and millions have unnecessarily died, and so it continues. President Trump couldn't have put it any better. The gravy train is right. It's exactly what this is. Zelensky, if he believes he has the power of the people, should have no problem calling an election. Let the people decide. It's the same thing that's going to happen in Canada. It's the same thing that's eventually going to happen in Israel. Call the election, Mr. President. Let the people decide if they think that you have the best interests of their country. I don't know what more Zelensky wants. He's not getting into NATO. I mean, that's sure as hell. At some day, he's going to have to face the reckoning on where that money went. Donald Trump and America are going to start to demand some answers. So it's either this man runs for the hills, seeks asylum somewhere, or starts to answer some questions, because it doesn't make sense to me, Russ, and I want to get your take on this. Why now all of a sudden he doesn't want peace? He said all of a sudden, all along, he was in favor of peace. Why doesn't he want peace?
Well, I think the answer is, he will fight to the very end of the last dollar that we send there, of which half of that dollar is probably in bank accounts in Switzerland, coded bank accounts, in some of his cronies' names. That's probably where 50% of that goes, and what happened to that. So he's had 2 years where, hey, if that money keeps going into my Swiss bank account, I'll keep fighting until the end of your money. Now, we just happen to have a new sheriff in town who's saying enough is enough, and that's a problem. And he's upset that we're not going to, we're going to the negotiation table right with the Russians. Well, he's had 3 years. Right. So, even before, before this war happened, Putin said, look, he said, if you try to go join NATO, this is a line in the sand. Yeah. With what happened in Crimea under Obama, if they have, well, why would Russia want to keep Crimea? Well, they have their Black Sea Fleet right there, Sevastopol. Of course, they want to keep Crimea. That's one of their major warm water ports. Right. So, why Eastern Ukraine? Well, that's because in the Donetsk basin, there's an awful lot of Russian speakers, and the Ukrainians launched a civil war against the Russian speakers, who were many of them were separatists, but to put them down in that part of the Eastern Ukraine, and they're crying out to Putin, please help us. And Putin is, remember, Russians are paranoid. You remember the Golden Hordes under the Mongols, the Napoleon, the Swedes, the Poles, the Hitler. So, they have a little bit of history of why they're paranoid. No wonder they want a little bit of buffer. Ukraine was part of that buffer between us. And then we tell them when Soviet Union falls apart that we're not going to move 1 inch further east. Total lie. So most all of Eastern Europe is now under NATO. So there's a reason why Russians have done this, and they don't trust us. And we just send hundreds of billions and hundreds of billions, and we have these war hawks and some of these damn generals I see on Fox News who are idiots, and then they're just warmongers. And I'm sure they have they have stakes. They sit on the boards of the big defense contractors and scooping up millions there.
Yep.
To make sure they sit up there and say, let's make sure war. Yep. I call them the war pigs. Under the song by Ozzy Osbourne. It's so we're not very smart.
Yeah.
Finally, President Trump has said enough, and thank goodness somebody with some common sense has said enough. Stop the killing, stop the stupidity, and he's got the table with negotiations going on. So finally, we get someone with common sense who's in the White House to stop this stupidity.
Yeah, I was just trying to pull something back up here that I remember from some years ago. Jack Keane may be one of the people that you're talking about on Fox News. Speaking of a war hawk, this is from September 1st of 2021. Fox News fails to disclose that its go-to Afghanistan experts profits from the war. This is an article written about Jack Keane. He was one of the ones that I remember. 4-star general, but he had many contracts. I think the company was KKR, was one of the military contracts he had. But it's him. It's Lindsey Graham, all these folks who are part of the military industrial complex. The line in the sand is right. I mean, was Putin right to invade Ukraine? I mean, obviously, no time a war happens is good, but you have to look at it from the outside. And people are going to say, I often have Colonel Doug McGregor on the show to talk about this stuff, and I have him on, and he's a Russian spy. He's Russian this. You guys are Russian. You're Russian. I don't have an ounce of Russian blood in me. I think that my ancestry goes, the furthest it goes is like Italy or maybe Ireland or England. So, there's nothing. We're not pro-Russian. We're pro-American. We're not Vladimir Putin sycophants. We just look at things objectively for what it's worth. And I think you laid it out very concisely about the line in the sand. Russ, if your neighbor starts putting machine guns mounted on the fence of your backyard and his, you're not going to be happy, right? You thought this guy was your friend. You're not going to take that well. Right. You're not going to take that well. What happened during the Cuban Missile Crisis? We had missiles pointed 90 miles away, and we had a very big issue with it. So this is right on your border. What is Vladimir Putin to do about it? So, it's a war that from the beginning I had said it's a not winnable war. And, the sooner people figure it out, I think Donald Trump has figured it out, that it's a war that's not going to be won. And it's time to put an end to it. If Zelensky doesn't want to be the guy to end the war, I think it tells you all you need to know. Russ, you get the last word here. The floor is yours. Anything you want to say?
Well, I think the main gist of what we wanted to talk about was the waste that's going on in the intel service. And so much of that has also been tied to literally spying on American citizens, that huge facility out there in Bluffdale, Utah. I mean, we didn't talk much about the CIA, but when I was over there, I had a station chief take me to in a Muslim country to a safe house. We have all these safe houses that are immaculate. He pulls open this huge mahogany cabinet full of every top liquor you can think of. He goes, before he asked me what's my favorite, drink, I said, well, I really like Glenlivet Scotch. He opens up this huge cabinet. He goes, oh, there it is. Right. I'm like, holy moly. I'm like, you guys in the CIA have way too much money. So if it's not, if it's not the Glenlivet on the liquor cabinet, the mahogany liquor cabinet that's hidden in the wall, a hidden wall thing, to Thin Thread and Trailblazer blowing billions, and I didn't even get to 2/3 of what I wanted to talk to. Some of the other examples, we don't have enough time. but there's so much waste involved. And then a lot of the money that's been wasted was literally unconstitutionally thrown at spying at our own citizens and using that money to spy on our Congress and the courts and the executive service and the movers and shakers to likely blackmail them to make sure the intel budget is whatever they want and then some. So that has to stop. The intel service is the lifeblood of the deep state, and the deep state needs to die. And you have to put a dagger in that heart, and you got to stop that lifeblood that's coming from the intel services as well.
Couldn't have said it any better myself. Russ, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much for joining us today.
More than welcome.
Thanks, everybody, for being with us today here on The Great America Show. We hope to see you back here tomorrow for The Great America Show, where our quest for truth, justice, and the American way continues. Folks, we'll see you back here tomorrow. Same time, same place. Until then, may God bless you. May God bless America, and may God bless the great Lou Dobbs. See you tomorrow.